There comes a momentum that ruptures the illusion, that severs your tired narrative from the reality that's been waiting behind your eyes all along. It is the moment you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin to ask, what in me called this forth? That moment is the birth of your sovereignty, the death of victimhood, the uprising of a soul that finally sees that the universe has never been a battlefield. It's been a mirror, not a mirror that flatters, not a mirror that distorts, but one that shows you mercilessly, perfectly, precisely what you carry, what you believe, what you emanate. This is not punishment. This is precision. Because the universe doesn't test you. It reflects you. It reflects the contents of your unconscious like sunlight glinting off broken glass. You are not being attacked. You are being revealed. The people who betray you, who dismiss you, who undervalue you are not anomalies. They are messengers, echoes, mirrors of the vibration you still hold within. That unhealed belief that whispers, I'm not enough, and watches as the world confirms it again and again. And until that belief dies, the reflection remains. The scene changes, the cast changes, the costumes shift, but the script repeats. You change jobs, lovers, cities, only to find yourself back at the same point on the wheel, wondering why your story always circles the same wound. But it is not the world that is cruel, it is your unconscious that is loud. Jung called this the shadow, the unacknowledged parts of ourselves that leak into our reality, not because we are cursed, but because we are blind. You are not being punished by life. You are being made conscious. And everything you hate about your external world is an invitation to see what still hides in your internal one. The narcissist, who exploits your kindness, a reflection of the part of you that still believes love must be earned through suffering, the boss who never sees your worth, a mirror to the belief that value is something others grant you, not something you possess inherently, the friend who gossips behind your back, a consequence of your need to be liked, to be chosen, no matter the cost. The universe doesn't test you to prove your strength. It mirrors you so you can finally see what you're carrying. And once you see it, you can choose. You can stop performing for ghosts. Stop trying to fix people who mirror your childhood wounds. Stop begging mirrors to change their reflection while refusing to clean the glass from within. You can say, no more. No more to repeating inherited stories. No more to reacting like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. No more to unconsciously summoning pain just to prove you're strong enough to endure it. Because strength is not endurance. Strength is clarity. Clarity that says, I will no longer participate in my own disempowerment. Clarity that doesn't ask why the world is unfair, but asks what in you is still aligned with suffering. The universe doesn't test, it reveals. And every painful pattern you see out there is a breadcrumb back to the place you abandoned yourself in here. This is not meant to shame you. This is meant to awaken you. You are never meant to walk blind through your own life, bumping into the same lessons dressed in different disguises. You are meant to wake up, to realize that the universe is not a judge, it's a stage, a projector, a screen playing your subconscious like a film, hoping you'll finally sit up, squint at the plot and say, wait, I've seen this before. Because you have. And you will until you change the real. And that change, it doesn't begin with revenge. It doesn't begin with fixing others. It begins with brutal self-honesty, the kind that strips you down to the bone, the kind that shatters illusions of righteousness and forces you to look at what you've tolerated, accepted, or normalized in the name of survival. You are not a passive observer in your life. You are the emitter, the broadcaster, the signal. You attract what reflects your frequency, not your wishes, not your words, but your wounds. And that's why you don't get what you want. You get what you are. So if you want to stop repeating pain, Stop lying to yourself about the pain you've normalized. If you want love that feels safe, look at the parts of you that equate love with anxiety. If you want abundance, examine your comfort with deprivation. If you want peace, confront the inner war you've mistaken for personality. Because you are not just attracting your mirror, you are living inside it. Everything is information. The silence of someone who once couldn't stop calling you, that's a message about your absence of boundaries. The friend who no longer includes you, a whisper that you've outgrown their frequency, the tension you feel walking into work every day, a vibration that's begging you to stop betraying your soul for a paycheck. But we numb it. We medicate the messages. We gaslight our own intuition. Why? Because accountability is terrifying. Because victimhood feels safe. Because if the problem is always out there, we never have to face the terrifying truth that we've always been the source. And if you are the source, then you are also the solution. That is not just power. That is responsibility, the kind that costs you your excuses, the kind that demands you let your old self die so a new one can be born through the fire of radical self-awareness. And that fire will burn. It will burn away your denial. It will scorch your justifications. It will reduce every comforting lie to ash. But what remains will be true, will be yours. Not borrowed beliefs, not inherited wounds, not stories dressed in spiritual language, just you in your rawest, realest, clearest form. And in that form, the mirror changes. Not because the universe gave you a break, but because you finally broke the loop. The people in your life will change. The patterns will dissolve. Not overnight, but inevitably. Because the external cannot help but respond to the internal. It is law. As within, so without. You no longer have to fear life testing you. Life doesn't test. Life reveals. And what it reveals is what you're ready to see. If you're tired of pain, stop ignoring its message. If you're tired of chaos, stop clinging to the identity it props up. If you're tired of being unseen, stop abandoning yourself and calling it humility. The mirror does not lie, but it also does not define you. You can change the image. You can shift the frequency. You can rise, not through force, but through understanding. Because transformation is not about becoming something new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you what to be. It's about reclaiming the parts of you that hid to survive. It's about meeting your reflection not with judgment, but with curiosity. Not with shame, but with sovereignty. And saying finally, I see you and I choose differently. Because that's all it takes to change your life. Not luck, not permission, not more suffering. Just a choice to meet the mirror with eyes wide open. The moment you make that choice, truly make it not with your lips but with your life, you feel the entire architecture of your inner world begin to rearrange. Not with fireworks, not with fanfare, but with a deep, quiet collapse, a tectonic shift beneath the surface of your being. The false scaffolding begins to fall. The roles you've played start to rot in your hands. The scripts you've memorized for approval and safety turn to dust in your mouth. You become naked, terrifyingly so. But that nakedness is your liberation. Because only when everything external is stripped away do you meet yourself unmasked. And when you meet yourself without distortion, you stop seeking validation from mirrors that were never clean to begin with. You no longer beg for scraps of love from those who do not even love themselves. You no longer sacrifice your truth at the altar of belonging, because you belong to yourself now. And in that sacred belonging, the mirror bends not in defiance, but in obedience. Because when you change the source, the reflection has no choice. This is not magic. It is metaphysics. It is frequency. It is reality obeying its deepest law, that resonance rules, that what you carry you call forth, that what you embody you invite. So if chaos keeps finding you, look at the vibration you've been marinating in. If abandonment keeps cutting you open, examine the ways you've abandoned yourself in the name of keeping peace. If disrespect keeps arriving at your door, ask yourself when you last respected your own time, your own voice, your own worth. You are not cursed. You are consistent. And consistency is power or poison. You become what you tolerate. You attract what you reflect. You repeat what you haven't healed. So heal, not through affirmations that soothe the ego, but change nothing. Not through spiritual bypassing that labels trauma as lessons to avoid feeling the depth of your own grief. Heal by looking straight into the eyes of your reflection and refusing to look away. No matter how grotesque it may seem, no matter how much it contradicts the story you've told about who you are. Because truth, even when it burns, is the only solvent that dissolves illusion. And illusion is what binds you. The illusion that you are powerless. The illusion that fate is cruel. The illusion that you're at the mercy of external forces, when in reality, those forces are just actors in the theater of your subconscious, playing roles you cast them in, reading lines you wrote with your beliefs, and they will keep performing that play until you tear up the script. So tear it up. Every belief that says love is earned, every story that says safety requires silence, every narrative that insists you must shrink to be accepted, rip them out by the root, because they are not truths, they are adaptations, responses to old wounds, ghosts of survival strategies that once protected you but now only cage you. You were not born to be small. You were not designed to live in reaction. You were not placed here to endlessly circle the same wounds, calling it destiny. You were meant to evolve, to awaken, to rise not by conquering the world, but by ceasing to be conquered by your own unconscious. And when you down, you stop projecting your power outward and start reclaiming it inward. The mirror shatters, not into chaos, but into clarity. Because the word no longer needs to scream what your soul already whispers. The universe doesn't need to mirror your abandonment because you've returned home to yourself. It doesn't need to reflect betrayal because you've stopped betraying your inner knowing. It doesn't need to show you lack because you've remembered your abundance. This is not a game. This is not spiritual theater. This is the architecture of your existence. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you taste the responsibility of creating your reflection, you can no longer stomach the poison of blame. Because to blame is to blind yourself. To blame is to hand over the pen and ask others to write your reality. To blame is to live in a prison whose key has always been in your pocket. But you are no prisoner. You are the architect. And the architecture is already changing, slowly, silently, cell by cell, thought by thought, frequency by frequency. You are becoming something else. Not someone else, but something truer, something cleaner, something so aligned. The universe no longer has to yell to get your attention. It simply whispers, and you move. Because your inner world is no longer chaotic noise, it is tuned. It is coherent. It is honest. And in honesty, there is peace. Not comfort, not safety, but peace the kind that says, I know who I am, and I no longer need the world to confirm it. Because I am no longer at war with myself. And when that war ends, the mirror softens. The people who once triggered you now pass like shadows. The games that once enticed you now bore you. The chaos that once seduced you now repels you. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You are no longer resonant with a reflection of your old self. And that is the real miracle. Not that the universe suddenly became kind, but that you stopped needing it to be anything other than what it is. Because you've remembered what you are, the signal, the source, the creator of the reflection. And once you remember that, the world bends, not out of pity, not out of favoritism, but out of law, as within, so without. So now the question is no longer, why is life doing this to me? The question is, what am I still unwilling to learn? Because every obstacle, every delay, every difficult person you meet is not a punishment, but a professor. And the classroom is your life. Some people spend decades praying for their circumstances to change while fiercely protecting the exact mindset that created them. They beg for expansion with a consciousness that fears anything unfamiliar. But you cannot grow inside a worldview that was built to keep you safe, small, and unseen. Growth demands that you outgrow your former self, that you release what once defined you, not because you were wrong, but because you've outlived the container. And to stay in it is to suffocate. So let the container crack. Let your old self fall apart. Let the beliefs you inherited from fear, culture, trauma, and broken people dissolve into nothing. Because only when you empty the vessel can something new be poured into you. To learn is to die a little. It is to admit, I was wrong. It is to declare, I do not know. It is to kneel before mystery and say, teach me. And this is the highest form of power. Not dominance, not certainty, but humility. Because humility opens doors that pride slams shut. It invites truth to enter and strip you of your illusions. It lets the light in. It lets reality in. And reality is never your enemy. It is your mirror, your mentor, your mirror again. If you resist it, you will bleed. But if you bow to it, you will transform. So begin to learn, not just with your intellect, but with your life. Let your patterns teach you what you refuse to see. Let your failures teach you what you were never taught. Let your heartbreaks teach you what love never was. And let every repetition show you where you still resist the lesson, because the lesson will return until it is learned. Not because life is cruel, but because life is precise. It does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are ready for. And readiness is not a feeling, it is a frequency. One that you tune into through awareness, humility, and the relentless decision to evolve. The world you see is filtered through the eyes you wear. And if your eyes are covered in wounds, everything will look like a threat. So heal your eyes. Expand your vision. Refuse to be a slave to the same stories, the same identities, the same limitations that kept your parents, your teachers, your society trapped in cages of survival. You were not born for that. You were born to be a bridge between what was and what's possible, between unconscious repetition and awakened creation. But to be that bridge, you must first burn your attachment to comfort. You must welcome the unfamiliar, not as a threat, but as a portal. Every new perspective is a key. Every truth that contradicts your old beliefs is a door. And if you are wise, you will stop asking whether it feels good and start asking whether it's real. Because reality is not here to flatter you. It's here to wake you up. You don't need more validation. You need more vision. Vision that sees beyond the walls of your upbringing. Vision that scans the horizon of possibility and asks, what else is true? Vision that challenges your deepest assumptions and says, maybe I was wrong about myself, about love, about life. And that maybe is the birthplace of revolution. Because the moment you open to another way of seeing, the mirror shifts. The old world starts to glitch. The reflection flickers. The simulation stutters. And you glimpse just for a second what else could be true if you dared to think differently. That is the power of learning. Not memorization, not accumulation, but transformation. The kind that begins not with answers, but with better questions. Questions like, what part of me still benefits from my limitations? What am I afraid will happen if I succeed? Who do I become when I stop performing pain? And what would my life look like if I no longer needed struggle to feel alive? These are not comfortable questions. They are surgical, they cut. But they also cleanse. Because to expand your vision is to purge your distortions. It is to wipe the mirror clean and see not just your wounds, but your potential. Not just your patterns, but your power. Not just your past, but your permission to evolve. And when you evolve, the world does not reward you. It responds to you. Because you've become unrecognizable to the frequency that once kept you small. You stop attracting mirrors of your wounds and begin attracting mirrors of your wholeness. People who meet you where you are, not where you've been. Opportunities that reflect your clarity, not your confusion. Paths that align with your purpose, not your pain. This is what it means to change your life, not to run faster on the treadmill of old identity, but to step off entirely, to say, that version of me has served its purpose. Now I rise. And rising is not always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet refusal, a quiet shift in posture, a quiet knowing that says, I am done being a reflection of my unconscious. Because now I choose to reflect my awareness, my depth, my expansion, and the mirror obeys. So now, standing here no longer in the loop, but in the light there is only one thing left to do. Choose. Not tomorrow. Not when it's safe. Not after one more delay, one more excuse, one more story about why you're not ready. Choose now to meet the reflection not as its victim, but as its author. To stop reacting and start creating. To step beyond the prison of your past and build the inner cathedral of a mind that no longer mirrors fear, but mirrors power, peace, and unshakable clarity. Because no one is coming to save you. No miracle is coming to correct the mirror if you keep feeding it the same distorted frequency. This is your dominion. This is your canvas. This is your inheritance. And the power you keep begging the universe to show you, it's already yours. But it activates only when you take full, ruthless ownership of the energy you emit, the beliefs you embody, the inner landscape you cultivate every single day. That's the key. Because you do not attract what you deserve. You attract what you allow, what you repeat, what you align with. So stop waiting to be chosen. Choose yourself. Stop begging the mirror to change. Change the one who's looking into it. Do not ask for lighter burdens, build a stronger mind. Do not wish for easier paths, forge a clearer soul. Do not seek comfort in illusion, seek truth, no matter how sharp it feels against the skin of your old identity. This is the climax of your story. The place where the protagonist remembers who they are. Not because someone handed them the truth, but because they earned it, bled for it, faced every shadow, and still walked forward. And now it's your turn to face the mirror and not flinch, to feel the sting of recognition and not retreat, to hold your reflection not with shame, but with sovereignty. Because once you own what you see, you are no longer at the mercy of what you attract. You are the signal, the sender, the frequency that bends the reality around you. You are the silent command that says, I will no longer be a match to my own suffering. I will no longer let wounds write my future. I will no longer participate in anything that insults my soul. And the universe responds not with applause, not with comfort, but with alignment. People fall away. Patterns dissolve. Paths appear where there were once only walls. Because when you become someone new, reality doesn't resist, it recalibrates. And you realize it was never testing you. It was mirroring you. And now it mirrors your truth, your wholeness, your power. So walk forward like the ground is rising to meet you. Speak like the universe is listening through every echo of your breath. Live like your inner world is the axis upon which your reality turns, because it is. And every step you take in truth is a command to the mirror. Reflect me clearly. Reflect me cleanly. Reflect me completely. And nothing less. Because the game is over. The loops are broken. The mirror is yours.